The Next Generation introduced a great starship trope that Star Trek has only used 3 times since. When Star Trek, The Next Generation launched in 1987, it boldly went where the original series never had, into the intricacies of life aboard a starship that was more than just a vessel for war or exploration. The USS Enterprise D was a flying community, a true city in space, complete with families, schools, holodecks, and even recreational jazz nights. But one of the most quietly brilliant storytelling ideas it introduced was a specific kind of ship-based trope, the multi-generational, civilian-populated starship. The idea that a starship could function not just as a military vessel or scientific cruiser, but as a home for hundreds of civilians, children, teachers, and dependents was groundbreaking. In the world of The Next Generation, space wasn't just a place for Starfleet's elite. It was a place where your whole family could come along. Despite its success, however, Star Trek has oddly returned to this trope only a handful of times since, and never with the same depth or daring as TNG. The Enterprise D, a floating Federation neighborhood. The Enterprise D wasn't just Captain Picard's command. It was an interstellar neighborhood. It had over 1,000 people on board, many of whom were not in Starfleet. There were schools for children, arboretums for families, and Counselor Deanna Troi to help everyone through the emotional strain of warp speed living. TNG episodes regularly depicted children in danger, teachers struggling with ethics, and families trying to stay together through long tours. This was a radical shift from Kirk's Enterprise, where life was entirely duty-bound and military-esque. The inclusion of civilians opened storytelling possibilities beyond classic phaser battles and prime directive conundrums. Suddenly, Picard had to worry not just about warp core breaches, but about whether kids should be allowed near the transporter room. And in doing so, TNG laid the groundwork for something Star Trek could have explored more frequently: the true cost and joy of living in space. Use #1, Voyagers, the 37th, the trope that could have been. The first time Star Trek flirted with returning to the civilian on a starship concept was in Voyager Season 2 opener, the 37th. In this episode, Captain Janeway offers a group of 20th century humans rescued from stasis the chance to join her crew on Voyager. She even mentions that they wouldn't be limited to just serving in Starfleet roles. They could contribute as teachers, engineers, or in any way that fit their talents. Had the show gone in that direction, Voyager could have become a multi-generational ship stranded in the Delta Quadrant, much like a tiny Federation outpost hurtling through unknown space. But the writers chose not to go there. The rescued humans decide to stay on the planet instead, and the ship remains mostly military and mission-focused. It was a missed opportunity to revisit the Enterprise D's broader vision of spacefaring life. Use #2, the USS Cerritos' families in Lower Decks. While mostly comedic, Star Trek, Lower Decks occasionally hints at the presence of civilians or family life aboard starships. Season 3's trusted sources briefly confirms that families do live aboard the USS Cerritos, though it's treated more as background detail than narrative center. Still, Lower Decks deserves credit for recognizing the precedent TNG set. In between jokes about batlets and buffer time, there's a nod to the idea that not everyone aboard a starship is there to explore strange new worlds. Some are there just trying to get their kid to class on time, or figure out how to navigate school while dodging the occasional spatial anomaly. It's not the fully immersive civilian ship life of TNG, but it's a rare acknowledgement that starships in the Federation were never just about the uniforms. Use #3, Star Trek, Picard, and the La Sirena crew. In Star Trek, Picard, the La Sirena is as far from a formal starship as the Enterprise D was grand. But across the show's 3 seasons, the ship becomes a home to a mismatched, makeshift family of civilians, ex-Starfleet officers, scientists, and even a Romulan or two. While not a Federation starship in the traditional sense, La Sirena channels the spirit of the Enterprise D in its own way. This is especially evident in Season 1, when Jean-Luc Picard collects a crew of people who are broken, lost, or otherwise unmoored. None of them are on an official mission. They're just living together, flying through space, trying to survive and make sense of the galaxy. It's not the utopian city in the stars that TNG envisioned, but it's a spiritual successor, the concept of ship as home, not just ship as job. Why did Star Trek abandon this trope? The most likely answer is practicality and focus. Civilian life aboard a starship demands time and narrative space to explore. It's easier to tell tight, starship via society,